Hi everybody, Bearded Rogue here, and today I wanted to talk about NXT Takeover Brooklyn IV, which is tomorrow night, Saturday night, um, and I it's SummerSlam weekend, which SummerSlam, for those who don't know, is one of the big four pay-per-views, which includes WrestleMania, the Royal Rumble, Survivor Series, and SummerSlam. Um, but this year I find myself completely and totally bored by the main roster. I really could care less about SummerSlam at this point. There are a couple of matches that look interesting. The talent on the main roster is fine, but the storylines are terrible. I'm not invested in really any of the matches. I think some of them will be good matches, particularly Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, and Kevin Owens, Braun Strowman has potential, depending on where they go with it, how much plot line they want to put into it versus, which guy they want to push. Overall, I don't know. I'm not really looking forward to SummerSlam, and it's the first Big Four pay-per-view I've not been looking forward to in a long time. I'm so done with everything involving Lesnar and Roman that I really could care less. Um, so yeah, that pretty much sums that up. So moving away from that, something I am looking forward to is NXT Takeover, and it's really interesting to me that NXT Takeover, the week before, or the Wednesday before every NXT Takeover, Triple H does a big phone call promoting and answering questions about the pay-per-view and stuff, and somebody actually asked on the phone call, since the main roster is so terrible and NXT TakeOver looks amazing, what are your plans to run the main roster to be more like NXT? And Triple H gave the, company man answer of everybody likes different things and blah, blah, blah. No, that's not the case. I don't know anybody who dislikes NXT. If they watch NXT, they like NXT. There are people who only watch indie feds who like NXT. There are people who've only up to this point watched WWE who like NXT. NXT is that perfect unison of the WWE superstars style with the indie feds' impressive skills, storytelling. It's the best of all worlds as far as I'm concerned. You know, it has slow burn builds like the one that leads us to the main event for Saturday night. It has amazing technical wrestling. A lot of the wrestlers who are there are basically the greatest hits of the indie feds, and have been for a while now, since the Finn Balor days. It's a really impressive roster of talent, and even the homegrown talent is worth watching and built up properly. And I can't say anything really bad about NXT beyond that it's not what the main roster is. If the main roster were to use NXT's method of doing things with the talent that they have, it would be the pinnacle of wrestling history, like of all time. It would be better than anything that has ever been filmed. So yeah. So to go into the actual card, there's not a bad match scheduled for Takeover Brooklyn, and there's actually one fewer matches than there normally are. Most NXT events have 6 matches. This one only has 5, which I think is to give a little bit more time, particularly to the main event. But there's not a bad match on this card. The first match being EC3, who used to be Derek Bateman in WWE and then went over to TNA as Dixie Carter's kayfabe nephew, made a name for himself, worked his ass off to get himself over in the indie feds, and then came back to NXT as EC3, the character he created there, the top 1%, the, creme de la creme, upper crust character, and he's really good. He's fantastic on the mic. He always has been. He looks amazing, and his skill in the ring is not shabby. He's not the most technical guy, but what he does, he's very solid in. And he's facing the Velveteen Dream, who is one of the best storytellers in all of wrestling, one of the most engaging characters in all of wrestling, and again, he finds himself in a feud without a title present, because he's capable of being entertaining without there being a belt involved whatsoever. So yet again, Velveteen Dream is going to be having an amazing match with one of their new talents. It's interesting to me because Velveteen Dream, if he loses this match, like he lost against Ricochet, like he lost against Aleister Black, it's pretty clear that he's become kind of the new Tyler Breeze. For those who aren't familiar, Tyler Breeze, back when he was in NXT and before he came up to the main roster and was utterly destroyed by the terrible booking up there, was kind of like the gatekeeper to the main event. Tyler Breeze was considered a legitimate threat, a true danger, and all of the new up-and-coming stars would go against him in order to basically prove that they were ready to be in the main event picture. So, you know, it kind of makes sense to be using him as that sort of a gatekeeper. Cassius Ohno currently occupies a similar role in NXT. Him and Velveteen Dream get wins on regular television when they're not building their feuds, but then lose at the pay-per-views in order to put other guys over. So they're still people who look strong because they get wins, but when it you know, is time to build up a new superstar, we have to have them beat somebody legitimate. One of those two people is the people they go after. Obviously, the heels defeat Ono, and the faces defeat Velveteen Dream, even though Velveteen Dream, at this point, is cheered by pretty much everybody because he's amazing at what he does. He puts on great matches, he creates great story moments, and he would be utterly ruined by the main roster, as far as I can tell. The booking up there would not know what to do with this gentleman, so I'm glad that he is where he is. I kind of wish that Tyler Breeze was still down there in NXT doing his thing in the same way, because his main roster run has been an absolute waste of his talents. At least he's getting a paycheck. So that's the first match. The second match is Mustache Mountain, Tyler Bate, the other Tyler, and Trent Seven, who are two-thirds of British Strong Style, some of the most amazing tag team wrestlers on the planet today. Are going to be taking on the Undisputed Era team of Roderick Strong and Kyle O'Reilly. Yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. These guys have had multiple matches as tag teams, singles matches amongst the various competitors. They haven't put on the same match twice. They haven't, you know, repeated themselves or even repeated similar spots. Each match has been its own unique thing, and I do not believe we will see that change at all in this. I think it will be fantastic, like it always has been. I have no idea who's going to go over. You know, Mustache Mountain went over and got the titles at the UK tournament event, and then Undisputed Era has since gotten them back. You know, I don't know if these guys are going to trade the belts back and forth over and over again. If they do, I would be pretty okay with that. Apparently the War Raiders, the renamed War Machine, plans on going after whoever wins, so I wouldn't be surprised to see Undisputed Era keep the belts here and have War Raiders going after them while the Mustache Mountain goes to the NXT UK division to become the tag champs there, because there's absolutely no reason they couldn't reign there. Which makes me wonder if at some point there could be a takeover that's NXT UK versus NXT with champions versus champions, kind of like a Night of Champions thing with Raw and SmackDown champions going head-to-head. But for bragging rights in NXT, that could be a really interesting thing. Anyway, regardless, that's going to be a phenomenal match. It's a great tag team match with some great tag teams, and yeah, it's just going to be good. Next is Kairi Sane and Shayna Baszler 3. I would not be surprised to see Shayna go over here. Kairi has had her number in the first two encounters, so I would not at all be surprised to see Shayna Baszler win here in this third match between the two of them. I kind of think that with the Mae Young Classic 2 looming around the corner and the next major defense being at the Evolution pay-per-view, they kind of want the belt on a heel. Because if I had to guess, whoever's going to come out of the Mae Young Classic will probably be a babyface. There is something to be said for having the winner of the first Mae Young Classic be the one with the belt when the second Mae Young Classic winner challenges for it, but I don't know which storyline they're going to go with. I would be kind of surprised to see Baszler drop it, although if they're looking to have Survivor Series be the 4 horsewomen of MMA versus the 4 horsewomen of the WWE, then Baszler has to move up to the main roster at some point, which means that it would not surprise me at all as well to see her drop the belt and then eventually get out of NXT and move up to the main roster to join Ronda there. We'll see. Either way, it'll be a good match. The matches between these two up to this point have both been pretty good. Their Mae Young Classic final is the weaker of the 2 matches that they've had at this point, but that was also the first of the 2 matches they've had up to this point. So I expect this one to be really good. Baszler's gotten a lot more polished. Kairi Sane is unbelievably good and always has been, and we'll see what happens. Next one is more Undisputed Era, Adam Cole, baby, against Ricochet, and this one looks really good. On paper, they're both solid talents. They both can trash talk. They both can go in the ring. It's for the North American Championship. Cole being the first North American champion who kind of weaseled his way into it in the ladder match and really kind of screwed Ricochet in the process. So this is kind of a match that we expected to have happen. I'm glad they saved it for a major event because I think both of these guys are going to show just how money they really are. And I expect it to be a fantastic match. I don't know what they're going to do as far as whether Ricochet wins or Adam Cole wins. I think they want the Undisputed Era to continue to be strong. However, at this point, the Undisputed Era is so over that even as heels, they get cheers wherever they go. So maybe they don't need the belts to be cheered. It wouldn't surprise me at all for them to want Cole to continue carrying it, however. We'll see. Ricochet is Ricochet, Prince Puma, however you want to look at it, is definitely main roster ready. I mean, he can't get much more polished. He could get better on the mic, but there's only so much of that can happen down in NXT, really. They don't get a lot of mic time. And what he's done has been completely serviceable. It's better than the promos he cut in New Japan, even. So, you know, it wouldn't surprise me that they fast-track him to the main roster, as sad as that would be, since they will not let him do or use his full skill set on the main roster. Be very, very sad to see that happen, but amazing talent on both sides of the equation here, and I don't know who's going to win, but I think it'll be really good. And then, last but not least, match number 5, the match that everybody's kind of waiting for, and it's the last man standing match between Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa, who is currently the NXT World Champion. This rivalry has been one of the best-built rivalries of all time, as far as I'm concerned. Like, this is right up there with Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes. You know, this is right up there with some of the other, like, all-time great feuds from wrestling history. Steamboat Savage. You know, they've taken their time. They've made Ciampa into an uber heel. I mean, I think he always was really inside, and all of the DIY and goody-goody face stuff was just kind of building to this point all along. If you're at all familiar with Ciampa's work on the indie feds, like, he's an absolute monster heel, and he's really showing that here. he's doing everything right, like not selling his merchandise. He just recently released a shirt that isn't the shirt that everybody wanted. It's another shirt that you can buy of his, but it's the only shirt that's available, the one that everybody really wants to buy. He's still withholding. He doesn't come out to entrance music. He just comes out to fans telling him how much he sucks and booing, and like he's picked on the man's wife. He's thrown the man's wedding ring into the audience. Like, this is like Rick Rude, Jake the Snake, I airbrush your wife's face on my tights levels of like heat between these two. To the point where like Gargano's gotten reckless. Both of them have been injured in the angle and carted off on stretchers or in ambulances. Tommaso has managed to pull a victory over Aleister Black out for the title, because Gargano's hot-headedness and impetuousness running in and interfering in the match ended up costing Black the title, and giving it to his worst nightmare come true, Tommaso Ciampa. Like, Last Man Standing is the only place that this feud could go from here. They've had street fights, they've had unsanctioned matches. Last Man Standing is really like the only place they could go from here. It doesn't make sense to do an Iron Man match. Like, this is going to be a fight, not a technical expo. If they had Hell in a Cell in NXT, then maybe they could justify Hell in a Cell with these two. But this is a rivalry like old school rivalries. Two people who legitimately hate each other, where we've gotten to watch every step of the way as that relationship turns from best of friends to bitterest of enemies, and it couldn't be built much better than it has been. I'm really looking forward to this. It's unfortunate that Aleister Black, who was supposed to be part of this match as a three-way match, got injured. I hope that he recovers well. He, I guess, tore one of his groin muscles and had to have surgery. He'll be back, I'm sure, and he'll be amazing when he gets back. But I don't think anybody's upset that we're getting Gargano, Ciampa, Last Man Standing out of the deal. Don't want Aleister to be hurt, but this is a fine consolation prize, as it were. Anyway, it's only 5 matches. The card is only 5 matches, but it's one of the best cards that I think they've ever put together. They've put a lot of effort into building the storylines here. All of the people involved have reasons to win and or lose. All of them have directions going forward. Like, there's people chasing all of the belts that are in line after the current challengers for the belts. There are already existing rivalries for all of these characters. Whoever wins Gargano Ciampa is going to have to contend with Aleister Black at some point if they don't move up to the main roster before then. You've already got the War Raiders looking over the shoulder of whoever wins the main belts. Whoever wins the Sane Baszler match is going to have to contend with the Mae Young Classic winner. And the EC3 Velveteen Dream match for, dominance, whichever one of them wins that match is a really good contender to be going after whoever is champion after the Adam Cole Ricochet match, or be injected into the main title scene. All of those are totally viable pathways, and this is why NXT is so good, because they've built and told the stories for these matches, while at the same time building up the people who are going to be entering into the storylines next. So by the time we get to the next TakeOver event, which I believe will be in Survivor Series time frame, like November-ish, there's going to be a whole set of stories again for that event, and who's going to be there and why and what's going on. And NXT is the best thing going right now, as far as bringing in all of the aspects of wrestling that I absolutely love. And tomorrow night's event is going to be just fire, like it always is. If you're watching NXT tomorrow night, be ready for the letdown that is SummerSlam on Sunday. Hopefully some of the stuff that comes out of it is interesting or entertaining. Ronda Bliss, Charlotte, Becky, and Carmella for the women's title there are going to have a big effect on the Evolution pay-per-view, so that's interesting. Like I said, the AJ Samoa Joe match should be good. The Braun Strowman versus Kevin Owens for the Money in the Bank contract could have greater implications going forward. I don't care about Lesnar Reigns at all. I literally hope the ring opens up, swallows them both, and they are never heard from again. Seth Rollins versus Ziggler for the IC title is interesting in that now Dean Ambrose is back and is kind of the equalizer with the Drew McIntyre thing. I don't know what they're going to do with those four guys, but they're very, very talented people. They're going to put on a fantastic match, and if Dean goes heel, it could be a very interesting storyline going forward. But overall, I'm really not that enthused about SummerSlam this year. So hopefully, at the very least, it can set up some interesting stuff going forward so that maybe I'll be interested by the time we get to the next event. Anyway, that's it. I just wanted to talk about that today, and I will see you guys tomorrow.